Hi, I'm Grayson with SpectrumVoIP, and in this video we're going to talk about the new SpectrumVoIP app for desktops. This is a new thing that we've got going for all of our customers. It's free and included for everybody. So if you already have a SpectrumVoIP account, you can just watch this video, follow along, and you'll be able to access all this cool tech right now. So let's go ahead and dive on in. So this is done through the web browser to begin with. So we're going to go and open up that right now. It works best in a Chromium-based web browser, such as Google Chrome, or even Microsoft Edge will work if that's your browser of choice. So let's go ahead and full screen this. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to app.spectrumvoip.com, SpectrumVoIP.com, and what you'll get is this login screen. Now this is really cool. Looks pretty slick. But before we do anything, what we're actually going to do is download this to our computer. And it's really quite simple how we're going to do this. Up in the top right hand corner, there is this little install button. And when you click on it, it's going to ask you if you want to install the app. So we're going to say install. And just like that, what's going to happen, it might pop up somewhere else on your screen. You're going to get something that looks like this, or maybe the full screen version, either way. And this is the app now. It is on your computer. It is, you can close out of your regular Chrome browser. It's there. You can even see in the top left-hand corner that I've got a little desktop icon already created because I'm on a PC. In fact, we can even go to our apps, and we can see that SpectrumVoIP is now an app installed on our computer. I can close this, open it up, and there it is. So I don't have to go back to the web browser and navigate to the website. It's just here, which is awesome. Now, to log in, you're going to use the same login credentials that you've probably already been doing if you've been using any sort of Stratus application, whether it's your mobile app or you've been using the built-in web phone from the Stratus portal. The same thing. So I'm going to go and log in here with a demo account. 1010@xyzcorporation.com. Enter in my password. And here we are. I've got my phone up and running. It works. I can use my keypad to dial. So let's see, I'll do 1003, press enter, makes a call. This is 1003. There you are. Awesome, right? So that works. I can dial non-inter-office numbers, such as maybe our support line, 469-429-2500.
Thank you for calling SpectrumVoIP's telephone support center, located in Plano, Texas.
There we are. Right, so it's got all your basic phone functionality right there. We can check the status of our soft phone there. It's a soft phone registered. There I am. This agent is, this user is actually an agent for a call center. So I can actually change their call center status here. We can talk more about that later. Now, let's talk about the app for just a second. This thing is, I can minimize it, move it out of the way. You'll see now it's down here on my my little taskbar. So I can click on it there and bring it back up, move it away when I don't need it. If you haven't touched any of your settings, it's just going to ring automatically. This is really, really nifty. So I can actually call it. Let me do it the other way. I've showed you outbound. Let me show you inbound. I'll just call it from this other phone here. There I am. Look, I get a notification here. I also get a notification from my PC, which is nice. If I say answer there, it answers it. Woo, feedback. There we go. And so you can see it popped up in the active calls. There it is. It's fantastic. Let's keep exploring this thing, right? So I can maximize this thing, go full screen, and I get this nice little tray over here on the left. Lots of space to work with on the right and middle. Or probably what most of us are going to do is keep it as a little in the background app, and that's okay. Just like any sort of smartphone, if you've ever seen these three horizontal lines, just click on them. There's your other menus. They've got nice icons and labels, and we're going to go through pretty much all of them. Let's start with the soft phone. We're going to skip call center for right now. Let's stick with the soft phone. The soft phone is where we started off. This is your phone, right? So you got recent calls, you got a dial pad. If you click on there, you can actually use like your keyboard to type it in, or you can just click the numbers. Either way. If I go full screen, you can see it just splits it up. Nothing crazy there. And yeah, it works as a dialer, as a you can copy paste phone numbers in there too, which is really nifty. That works pretty darn well for what it is. So let's just do another call. Let me just call Ron back by clicking on him. We're gonna do this, and I'll mute over here. There we go, so we can prevent that feedback. And let's talk about what we can do during a phone call. So all your basic phone functions are here. You got a mute button. Now the call is muted. You'll see it's kind of grayed there, so you can remember that it's muted. You can put them on hold. It says on hold. The caller is now on hold. It's great. If you need to do something with the Dialpad, you can jump back there, press the back button to go back, right? Pretty intuitive. If you need to add a call, you can do add call, and then you can dial a new number, or you can jump over to your contacts and find a contact to add in for a three-way call. Pretty great there. In fact, let's go ahead and do that. Let me go contacts, and we'll tack on Jack Hartgrove. I got another desk phone here to my left. We'll just click on him, and then click on the make a call button. That makes this call over here. I'm going to mute that one so that it is not going crazy with the feedback. And now what you'll see is I've got both of these up here. So remember, I'm 110, and I have a call to 1010. I'm 1010. I have a call for 1003 initially, and then they're now on hold. And I made a new call using the add call button for 1001. And now what I can do is I can swap back between those. You can see where the active and on hold are switching. I can switch back between those. Or I can merge those calls together. If I say merge call, boom, there I am. We're all on the same line together. I can mute everybody, unmute everybody, and I can split the call back in case I need to. And you'll see now one of them is on hold and the other one is not, which is nice. It's exactly what you want from a three-way call. Now, while you are merged, you are able to just end the call. And that ends it for everybody, right? So just be careful of that in case you are looking to jump off the line. Fantastic. Let's jump back into another call. Let's dial up. We'll do 1003 this time. There we go. And we'll mute again to prevent feedback. Let's talk about transfers. Transfers could not be easier. There's literally a transfer button right there in the middle of the screen. When I click on it, it asks me first thing if I want a blind transfer or an assisted transfer. The blind transfer will just send the caller right on over to that third party, whatever destination you're about to choose. Or you can do assisted transfer where you're going to be able to chat with that person first. So if I just do blind transfer, I can type in, let's do 1003, call it. I'm off the call. If you can check on my active call list, I'm no longer on a call. But these two phones, once I answer, there we go. Now these guys are talking to each other. Right? So that one's a blind transfer. It goes straight over. You don't have to do anything else. It just goes straight to that person. But let's try that assisted transfer, see what that looks like. Start up my phone call again. Mute it for feedback purposes. And then we're going to do a transfer again, but this time we'll select assisted transfer. When I do assisted transfer, similar thing's going to happen. I'm going to go and click on 1003 because I know who that's who it needs to go to. Click on that. Now I get to talk with 1003 first, right? So I get to talk with them first. You can see that the original caller is on hold. We'll see that in the top right here where it says on hold, which is really cool. And then when I'm ready, I can either swap calls or just complete the transfer, which is probably that was the intent, right? So I'm gonna say, okay, you ready? Here we go. Complete that transfer, my call ends, and now these two guys are talking to each other. Really, really simple. All right, let's get one more going here. I think we can get the rest of this in one go. There we go. There's a recording button, right? A recording button is if you don't have recordings automatically enabled on your account, you're still able to record partial calls by just turning on recordings. It'll start the recording, and then as we see here, give it a second to initiate that. You can either pause the recording to come back to it, or you can stop the recording, say that's the end of it, that's all I want. So you get those options as well. Down here, you get call park and switch phone. We'll talk about call park first. If you do call park is kind of like putting a caller on hold, except what you're actually going to get to do is select a parking spot for them, and then anybody else that's on your platform or on your service is going to be able to retrieve that call from that parking spot. Let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to press call park. I can either do call park where I'm going to be able to select the spot, or dynamic park, and it will just pick a spot for me. Let's go ahead and do the regular one where it says call park. I'll click on that one, and you'll see that this account has 3. Park 1, Park 2, Park 3, also known as 701, 702, and 703. This is our standard setup, so yours might look a little bit different if you've had any sort of special adjustments to your account, but the same principles are going to apply. All you'll do is click on the parking spot that you want to do. Let's do Park 1. All right, there we go. And we'll see that the call has now been parked, right? So I've got this right here. It's actually showing up on all my other phones as well. In fact, we should be able to see that if I do this. All right, there we are. Right, so we've got another desk phone here with Park 1 lit up red because there's an active call on there. And then that could either be retrieved by one of those desk phones by pressing on this button right here, or if I'm wanting to pick up the call, I can just say receive call right here in my parking section. It'll ring back to me and I say accept, and now I'm talking back with them again. So you can place a call on park. Anybody else in the office is going to be able to, or not even in the physical office, in your organization, is going to be able to pick up the call and continue that conversation. It's kind of like just putting them on hold, but for the whole office, which is really cool. Last thing on here, we're going to talk about switch phones. If I do switch phones, I'll get an option pulled up here, and it's not really going to work for me. But if you are a user that has a desk phone and a web phone and maybe a mobile app, you're going to be able to move that call to one of your other devices. And what you'll see here is a list of those other devices. All right, and then actual last thing here is the add notes. If you are in a call center environment and you've added call center dispositions to your account, first off, if you know what that means, then you probably have it. If you don't, probably don't need to worry about it. The dispositions here are customizable, and they're basically like notes. So if I say like here, I have this one set up for like internal request, and then a reason can be like they need a new computer, and then I can put notes in here and say new employee, new computer, and save those notes in relation to this call. Like I said, not everybody's going to have that one, so if you don't see it, don't panic. That's an additional thing that we set up for those who need it. Most people don't need that. Now, if you do need to hide the call at any time, you can hide it, go do something else, and then come back to your active calls here in the top. You'll see active calls. That'll take you straight to it, and then to see which calls you're doing. And then you can either answer that call, being like bring that back in the forefront, or transfer that call. You can also just jump back to that Dialpad type menu by saying back to call. It's right there. And here we are. All right, next thing we're going to talk about is the call history. So up in the top left, we'll click on our menu icon and go to the call history. Your call history, if you've been in our Stratus portal, it's going to look a lot like that. You've got all calls, outbound calls, inbound calls, and missed calls. I don't have any missed calls. Kudos. And this is also in full screen view. In fact, if you have recordings turned on, you'll actually be able to listen to those recordings in here. Now, some of those recordings might take a while to show up. That's just our system processing and converting the file to the right format. So if you don't see it right away, just give it a little bit of time, come back. And as you can see here, one of the calls from 14 minutes ago, I have it here. I can click play.
This is 1000.
And there it goes. It starts playing. You can also call them back, send a chat message if it's internal, or view their contact information. So you have all your call history here. Now, this is just the call history for your user. So if you're looking for a call from somebody else, and maybe you're like an office manager where you're an admin on our services, this is not where you're going to see all those calls. You will still have to log into the Stratus web portal in order to view all the calls on the account if you're one of those office managers. Moving on, we have our contacts section. So we'll click on contacts here. And what we're going to be able to see initially is all the contacts on your account, meaning all your coworkers, right? So I've got all my coworkers here, but as you can also see, I've got a couple other actually, you guys can't see that, can you? Here we go. Let's do this. Now you can see. We've got a couple other internal users. And so we've got our regular users, so I can click on them and then say call to make a call to them if they're available, which is really cool. Or I can even actually take one of these, which is a contact I created. So I can say create, add in a list of contacts. Now, if you're an office manager, there are other ways to add in contacts in bulk for shared contacts, and that also shows up here. The cool thing about this is that everything that you've done in the portal, it gets reflected here, and vice versa. So if any changes gets made, they are going to be made in both places. The thing to keep in mind, at least with some of these things though, is that you are a basic user on here, meaning anything that you create on here is only for your user. It's not going to be created for the rest of the organization. So if I add in a contact here, I'm the only one who's going to be able to see that contact all the time. It doesn't get shared with everybody else. So keep that in mind in case you're wondering why your buddy can't see your contact. All right, next we've got voicemail. This does have visual voicemail. This guy doesn't really have any voicemail because he's not really a big user, but let's go ahead and get one thrown in there. I'm gonna go and get that done real quick. Bear with me 1 second. All right, this is a test voicemail message. And we are going to hang up the call in 3, 2, 1. All right, so we got the voicemail on here now. You can see I just added one, left a voicemail here just a few seconds ago. So here it is, and I can listen to it. All right, this is a test voice. I can move it to the save folder. I can forward it to somebody else, and if I want to, I can, I can delete it, or I can give them a call back. Right, so that's all here. If I do click it to the save, what that ends up doing is it just moves it to the saved folder. It doesn't actually download it, it just saves it right here, where I get all of those same options again. So your visual voicemail being right here, pretty nifty, pretty great, pretty straightforward too. All right, next we have chat. The chat and SMS can vary slightly depending on if you have texting enabled on your account. If you do have texting enabled on your account, you can text from here. So you can see I've got this little text conversation going on here. You can see those panels behind me. We were testing those out, trying to figure out if those would be functional, and we found a good layout. I think it's the same layout. Yeah, I think it's the same layout. I think this was the good one. Anyways, but you also have the ability to just inter-office chat. Inter-office chat is just between Spectrum VoIP, not employees, but employees that are all on your organization, right? So if somebody else logs in with their desktop app and you log in with yours, you guys can actually send chats to each other and view them right here. So if we're wanting to make a new chat or SMS session, we can just click on the new one. When we do that, we'll either be able to find one of our contacts or put in a number if you have texting enabled. For this example, let's just say we're going to send a text to Kendra. You say, hello, Kendra, press enter. And there we go. We now have a text conversation started, which is really nice. You can send attachments. Don't go crazy with it. This is not a file sharing system. So if you're sending a picture, like a single picture, that's fine. We have emojis, you can send those, they'll show up. And then also, cool thing about this, anything that you do here, if you have the Spectrum VoIP mobile app on your smartphone, like your Android or iPhone, these conversations follow you as long as you're logged in as the same user, right? So if I log in as 1010 on my mobile app and I'm having conversations there, I come back here to the desktop app, it follows me along because it's all linked. It's all the same thing. You're just accessing it through a different medium, right? Which is really, really great. Now you might notice that there is a little video icon. If you do click on that, what's going to happen is that's going to try to open up Stratus Meeting. That's our video platform for video conferencing. If you guys are using that, you guys will just need to give it a name, an email, so that you can join a meeting. But that's a subject for another video. All right, next thing we're going to talk about is Greetings. We're going to skip time frames for now because I want to double up on the or combo the time frames with the answering rules because they kind of go together. So we're going to skip over that and we'll go to greetings. Now in the greetings section, this is your voicemail greetings, right? So if you don't answer your call or you put on do not disturb or something like that, this is the greeting that's going to play for your user. So what we can do is we can actually see that I have 3 greetings here because I've been messing around with it. And we have one of them that has active on it. This is the current one that's going to have the active tag, and this is the current one that will be played when it goes to voicemail. If I want to change that one, I can click on this other one, click on the check mark. And now you'll see that it says updated as active greeting. I click back and you'll see the active tag has switched. That's the new one that they'll hear. If you want to make a new one, you can actually do it right here in the app. Just click on create, give it a name, super awesome greeting. Oh, too long. How about just awesome greeting? There we go. And then we got 2 ways that we can do it, either text to speech or record. If you do record, it's just going to record with your microphone that's on your laptop, or if you have an external one like a headset, something like that, it will use that. If you use text to speech, if you've ever used the text to speech on our platform, it's the same stuff, which is great. This is my new awesome message. Please leave a voicemail. Awesome. You can select between English and Spanish, as well as a myriad of voices here. I'm partial to Daniel, pretty plain, pretty boring, but better than a robot. So here you go, let's play it.
This is my new awesome message. Please leave a voicemail.
There you go. Right, so you guys can play around with the different voices, pick one that you like if you're using text to speech. Now once you've done that, you'll just say create, and now it's in there, right? Awesome greeting, and I can select it and set it as my default. And when we go back, we'll see that now that one has the active. That's simple to set up a new greeting, and you can change those at any time. All right, next, let's click on Call Park. We kind of saw this earlier. If somebody else is on Call Park and you've been told go pick up that call from Call Park or Park 2, whatever it is, this is where you can find them, right? So currently they're empty, but you can click on them in order to pick up an active call if there is one there. Okay, so now that we're at the answering rules, let's take a look at the time frames and answering rules together, because they really do go together. Let's click on answering rules first. You'll see here, let me widen this out to get a better view. What we'll see is that we have our answering rules for our user. Now these are just rules that are going to be used when a person calls our extension number. All right, so if somebody dials 1010, because that's the extension I'm logged into, what is going to happen, right? So I've got this one that's default, currently active, saying it's going to simultaneously ring 1010 and 1010 SP. 1010 is your desk phone. That's like it's the default setting, so it's just going to stay up there. The 1010 SP is your soft phone. That's what this app is. So if you see SP, don't freak out. The SP just means your soft phone, which is the app. Right? So if I want to edit that, I can click on edit, and I've got a whole bunch of different options that I can choose from. Now that's a whole nother conversation that we're not going to spend here because it's not unique to the app. But your answering rules can configure all those different settings as far as, are you going to forward calls? Are you going to change what happens when you press the reject button? What happens when you don't answer it? What happens if you're offline? What do you want to happen? So I'll put a link to the article down below in case you want to see what those answering rule options are. Now, what we also have here already is a working times time frame. This working times time frame, I believe, and we'll check it here in a second, is a like business hours type of time frame, meaning it's for practicality purposes, it's Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then outside of those hours, what do you want it to do is the default. So the working times, if I enable it, which I can go up here, edit, and say enable, and save. Now that one's going to have the active tag. And so now if somebody calls my extension number 1010, it's going to forward to the call queue. So it's not going to ring me. It's going to forward to the call queue instead. And so maybe that's what I want. Maybe that's not what I want. It's very customizable in that aspect. But let's do this right now. We're going to remove it because this is what most people are going to see. It's just going to be default. And let's go through the process of adding a rule. Before we can add a rule, we actually need a time frame. Now I've got 2 here, but I'm going to show you how to make a new one. So let's go back up to our menu and click on timeframes. All right, we can see that for working times, it's roughly 9 a.m. to a little after 3, between 3 and 4 each day. Each day is configurable. And then we've got holidays here where you can actually check specific date ranges. So let's take a look at the working times one. If we click on edit, you can see it's a days of the week and times. This is a weekly reoccurring time frame. So you can select which days of the week it will be active and what times, the start and end times. It's super easy to edit these. You just kind of click and drag these out. So maybe this on Mondays is actually supposed to be 8 a.m. Boom, you can do that. In fact, you can even add an extra range in there if you want to have 2 sections, a start and end and a start and end on the same day. Just click on that. And now you've got 2 ranges in here that you can customize the start and end times for both. I'm just going to say cancel to leave it as it was. If you're wanting to add a new one, you just say add time frame, give it a name. Let's actually make one that just says temp forward, pretty good one to have. And we're going to make this one an always time frame. The always time frame is either going to be on or off. There is no automatic turnover or enabling. You have to go in and either enable it or disable it. So the temp forward one is a pretty good one to have, no matter who you are. I'm gonna go and save that. And let's just take a look just to show you guys what's that holiday one look like. If I click on edit here, you'll see it is a specific dates or ranges type. And then what we have is a from and a to. And you just click on the calendar and say what time and date you want it to start on and what time and date you want it to end on. And so it'll activate it from this time to this time and date, and then it's done. And what's really cool about this is, say you're doing holidays, you can actually add on multiple holidays onto it. So you can kind of pre-program out all your holidays in advance to when you want calls to go to voicemail or whatever it may be. All right, so let's jump back over to our answering rules now that we have some time frames. And here's what we'll end up needing to do. All you'll do is click on add rule. You'll select your time frame that you want to add to your list of rules. Let's do the working times, so your business hours. And then what you want to do is say, what do you want to happen when it's during those hours? For most people, say during business hours, they want to ring their phones, and they want to ring all their phones. Whether or not they are away from their computer, away from their desk, they want to be able to answer it. As long as you are logged in on your device, you want to be able to have that call. So that's great. Let's just say save. Fantastic. You'll notice it looks very similar to the default because that's what our default does. And so if you don't do anything, it's already going to ring all of your devices all at the same time. As long as you're just logged in and haven't touched any of your settings, you'll be good. But let's say we wanted to do something different outside of business hours. So working times is our business hours. It's going to ring all of our phones. But maybe I just want the calls to go straight to voicemail after hours. Well, if it's not during the working times, it's going to go to the time frame below it, which is default. And so what I can do is actually just treat the default as my after hours, right? So I'm going to click on edit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to forward all these calls always to, I'm going to type in my extension number and find my voicemail option. Now you can see I could forward it to a specific phone. So the M is for the mobile app on your smartphone. SP is for the soft phone, which is this desktop app that we're on right now. WP is for the web phone, which is the built-in Stratus ones. If you log into the Stratus web portal and click on the little option in the top right, it says Stratus web phone, I think is what it's called. That will create that one. And then you can just send it to yourself, which really wouldn't do much. That one would create a loop, and that's bad. So we can do voicemail here. If you click on voicemail, this will send all the calls to your voicemail. So it won't even ring you. It's just going to forward directly to voicemail, which is awesome. Now, other things you could put in here, something like a phone number. Just put a phone number in there. It'll work. You can put in another user. Say it's like, hey, while I'm out of office, I'm going to send it to 1003. You can send it to another user. All those things are valid options. So let's just send it to our voicemail for now. And then click save. There we go. So what we have right now is answering rules that will say during our working times or business hours, it's going to ring my phones as long as I'm logged into them. And then outside of that time, it's going to go to my default time frame, which is going to forward the calls always to my voicemail. So it won't even try to ring me after hours. I'm not going to be disturbed, which is awesome. All right, moving on. Let's check on these settings. There's a couple extra settings here that we have that I really want to make sure we explain, just because they might not make a whole lot of sense right away. So what we've got here, starting up at the top, we've got some general settings. Let's start with the first one, make call using answering rules. Now, what the app originally is kind of designed to do is to treat it like a phone. So if you are going to use this as your phone, it'll ring out from this phone. None of your other devices are going to ring, at least not for outbound calls. But if you're using this as more of like a dialer, and like say you don't have a microphone or speakers on your laptop, something like that, you can actually turn this one on and it'll follow your answering rules. So as long as somebody could theoretically call you and ring your devices, what you can actually do is use this as like a kind of maybe a copy paste dialer, paste in a phone number, click send, your desk phone would ring, you answer your desk phone, and then that would place the call outbound. So it would just call you first before calling out. Let's actually see what that looks like. So let's go, now that we have it enabled, let's click on soft phone and let's call our support line 469-429-2500. If I press enter, it's actually going to call me first. Now I don't have a desk phone, but the desk phone will be ringing too. And when I answer that,
thank you for calling
it then calls
SpectrumVoIP
the
Telephone
outbound,
Support Center,
right? Which is
located
different
in
than what we
Plano,
had
Texas.
before whenever it was unchecked. And so now if I do this again, same thing, 469-429-2500, it just calls it right away, right? So if it's a really good option if you are, it's a really good option if you don't actually want to use this as a phone, but more as a control. You can initiate a call in this method. The other thing here is show message count. This is for these message and voicemail options, specifically the chat and SMS. It's like, what do you want this number to actually represent? So if I have a new chat in here, it'll put a 1. If I have 2 chats, it'll put a 2. If we read here, it's going to say if enabled, it's going to show a count on the basis of the total new messages or texts. Otherwise, it's going to show the count based on unread conversations. So if you're looking to see the total number of messages that you've missed, check it. Otherwise, if you have 10 messages from one person and 5 from another, you're just going to see 2 because it's 2 conversations that you've got missed messages from. Next is the message notification persistence. If enabled, this is going to have a new message or text notification that will stay on your screen until the action is performed. So if you click on that one, the little pop-up that shows up here in the bottom right-hand corner, it's just going to stay there until you do something with it, which is really great, especially for chat and SMS. It's kind of like if you got a chat that was important and you were glanced away from your computer for a second, and then when you come back, the notification's gone. That's all you got, and maybe you had some other messages here, so it doesn't look like anything changed. This will enable it to be persistently there in case you want that. Last thing under this section is the incoming ringtone. We do have a couple other ringtones to choose from. Feel free to try them out. All right, you got a couple to choose from. Make it personal. Next, we've got microphones and speakers and ringers. This is really cool because you get to choose your source, right? So if you're like me and I've got a whole bunch of inputs in my setup here, I can actually specifically choose which one to use. So maybe I'm using one for something else, one for this. And then what you'll see here is you can tell it's working and then it's active because you can actually see the wave forms as they move. Sorry, I was trying to get it to really spike up. There it is. Sorry if that hurts your ears. Similarly with speakers, there's actually two sections here, speakers and ringers. The speakers is what you want to have during the call. So when that third party or the other person is talking to you, where do you want it to come from? So I've got my default here. Maybe I want it to go from somewhere else. Or maybe I want my ringer to be something different. Maybe I want my speaker to be in my headset, if I've got like a little headset thing. But I want the ringer to be like my desktop speakers so that I can hear it in case I'm away. So you can configure that to your liking. Last thing down here is to do with call pop-ups. This is actually really, really cool. So one, you'd have to just either enable it or disable it. It's disabled by default. But then you get this call pop options here. So you can say, when do you want it to do a call pop-up? So is it when you answer the call? Do you want something to pop up on the screen? Or just when it's ringing right away, do you want it to pop up on the screen? It's kind of your choice. You can also even set a delay to the call pop-up by seconds. If you want to wait 5 seconds for the call pop-up, maybe you've got a system flow, a workflow that needs to have it on a delay, you can do that. Otherwise, it'll be as instant as it can. Now to choose that call pop-up, it's going to have a URL, right? So this is a call pop-up that is going to pop up a web browser screen searching for the incoming phone number, right? And this is really cool because it actually works even for internal calls, which is kind of fun. Let's try that right now. There it is. And this actually popped up right here. Sorry, I've got a couple screens on here, but it searched 1003 on ringing, right? So there it is. It searched for 1003 and it popped up. Now you can configure this to be for whatever kind of CRM or search database that you're using, as long as it's in a web browser. All you're going to do is find the URL. And usually at the URL, like say you search something in your browser, and at the end of it is going to be your search term. And this is where you put bracket, TN, close bracket. It's the less than sign and then the greater than sign. If you have a CRM, they probably, and it's a web-based CRM, they probably have some extra instructions about like what this URL is supposed to be. So you can consult them for that. But in general, if you can have a web-based CRM or web-based search of something where you can put the search term at the end, just take it here, paste it in here, and substitute that last search term with this bracket, T and bracket, and you'll be good to go. Now again, you can do it on ringing or on answered. I had it on ringing, which is why it actually popped up even before I answered. That's all that was. All right, last thing I want to talk about here is the call center. We've got the call center up here. This call center has some extra stuff in here, so I really want to make sure that we are taking our time to look at this. In the call center section, which won't even show up for everybody, you have to actually be set as a call center agent or a call center supervisor, or I believe an office manager, as your user scope. So if you're just basic user, maybe you just you guys don't have like a true call center functionality, you might not even see this, and that's okay. You can just skip this section. But what we have here is I'm actually in two call queues right now, an accounting queue and a support queue, and I'm offline in both. Now up here in the top, I've got this little offline icon here. It's red. If I click on it, I can actually change my status. Now when I say change my status, it means am I either online, am I offline? And if I'm offline, why am I offline? Am I on lunch? Am I on break? Am I in a meeting? Am I going to the bathroom? Do I have a secret meeting? Am I going camping? Which these here, bathroom, secret, camping, and reason number 2, these are actually custom greetings that we can add. So if you don't see these, it's because I added them to this account. But you guys are able to add in your own custom statuses for your company's or business's purpose. So you guys can change that too, which is really cool. But if I go online, you'll see this changes to green, and so do these. These are my status for each queue, right? Which is really cool. If I do this, I'm going to say I can actually log in or out of individual queues. So I can log out of the accounting queue, but still be available for the support queue, and vice versa. There we go. Log back in. There it is. which is great. So you got all this control straight from the app. You don't have to log in somewhere else. You've already logged in here. You don't need to log in anywhere else. What you're going to be able to see is if I just click on any of these, I'm actually going to be able to see that this section over here is going to change depending on which queue I'm looking at. So here's the support queue. Here's the accounting queue, and I can see the callers that are waiting, if we had any, and then which agents are in there and their statuses as well, right? So you can see that there's some agents there. A couple of them are online, some of them are not. So I can actually see who else is in that queue and what they're doing, more or less what they're doing, right? Likewise, I can always see here under my stats, we've got some basic call stats here that you guys are going to be able to take a look at for your own user. Take a look at your calls per hour for the past 6, 12, or 4 hours. Same thing for calls per day. If you hover over these, you're going to be able to get individual stats for those little points in time, which is really cool. And then some queue stats, right? Some how many outbound calls you're making, how many inbound calls you're making, talk time, things like that, just to kind of give you a glimpse on what kind of stats you guys are having, which is pretty darn great. All right, lastly, I just want to show you guys that you can log out of the app. If you do log out here, or sign out rather, you're just logged out. You can close it and you can open it back up again and log back in. All right, and so we're back in. Which is pretty straightforward, right? The other things to keep in mind are that this is technically a web-based software. So if you do see a little pop-up saying, hey, there's an update, just click on it and update it. Otherwise, if you think it might be bugging out for some reason or another, maybe especially if you've had it open for a very long amount of time, if you just kind of leave it open all the time, just click on the refresh button and reload the page. And any updates that might have been needing to get applied in the background will just get updated automatically. Nothing actually gets downloaded, which is great. So this takes up very, very, very little space on your computer. And you'll constantly get those updates. Just click on the update if a pop-up occurs in the middle of the screen, and it'll update super quick. Lastly, is just keep in mind that it's a phone, right? So it is going to need access to both a microphone and a speaker of some kind, whether that's a headset that you have plugged into your computer, you have an external microphone, or you're using the built-in systems of your computer. You need to give it permission for your microphone and speaker. Usually what this ends up being is this little icon up here in the top. This will have something about how it's blocking access to the microphone. You need to let it be allowed. I know a lot of us get into a security heightened awareness and you say block, 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 block. But in this case, we actually do need it to be allowed. Otherwise, you won't be able to make a call and nobody's gonna be able to hear you. You're not gonna be able to hear them. You need to allow it. So make sure you do that. You might need to click on the manage to configure that further, but you can confront your browser settings for all that good information. All right, guys, thanks for watching this video. I hope it was informative. Go ahead and try out the app. Even if you don't need to use it full time, we highly suggest using it and submitting any feedback as you might have. Once again, it's at app.spectrumvoip.com. Just click on the install in the top right of your Chromium-based browser, and it'll download straight to your computer. Pretty simple. Thanks, guys.